When you want to learn something new, start a podcast. You're listening to Jiu Jitsu with Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, you're considering getting on the mats, or you're taking your child to train. I'm so happy you're here listening to this episode. Please stay until the end. So I never once thought at the age of 10, I'd be hosting my own wrestling, in inverted commas, podcast. Now, whilst it's not purely about wrestling, this podcast show is about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and my journey as a participant, a potential competitor and opponent in the sport. So this is really me taking step by step, learning as I'm going. This episode is about kind of warming up to the thought of jiu-jitsu and kind of warming up in general for my journey in the martial arts and jiu-jitsu world. So I grew up watching television with my family, and I kind of mentioned the age of 10, which is when we were watching Saturday and Sunday sports. Saturday was about wrestling and football, and Sunday was about motorsports. But Saturday afternoon, I really remember sat down with my family, my mother and father and my brother, watching wrestling on UK terrestrial television. Now, I was always just overwhelmed by the strength and possibly the acting at that point. I won't deny being misled by what's there. Or in fact, forgive me, wrestlers do wrestle, but I'm really not sure of the heritage back in the 1980s in the UK. But talking about strength, I was also very, very interested in watching the world's strongest man and Ironman competitions. It was an annual thing. So we all used to sit down as a family and watch these competitions. Maybe you did too. But again, I was absolutely overwhelmed and inspired by the strength of these humans to be able to do things that they put their minds to and compete in a way that, was just kind of out of this world, strength beyond strength, pulling trucks, lifting trees, goodness knows. Maybe you've got your own memories, but muscle and strength kind of came up from watching those shows back in the day. Having started back in November 2022, I didn't come from a martial arts background. That's not my basis. I'm a techie and, been coding and dancing since the age of 3. So kind of creative tech, but I'm really valuing my dance and balance, creativity, musicality in my martial arts. And I will continue to say this probably in every episode, but I love jiu-jitsu and meeting other people on the mats and learning techniques from fantastic professors. I will name drop you there, Joanna, my own very amazing professor at Grazer Baha in Staple Hill in Bristol. But it wasn't quite so easy for me. When I started my jiu-jitsu journey, I didn't find it easy, dressing up, putting my gi on, my gi pants, which is the jacket, and the trousers, not really knowing what I was letting myself in for. And I kind of found the warm-up pretty tough. Whilst I'd, trained and exercised in my not too distant past, this was something different, intense warm-up. But I got through it, got through my first session, and I also went along with my 2 young children, and they weren't sure what to expect. And I'll tell you maybe in a further episode when I interview my son, how his journey was for him during starting out in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which is kind of a different story, but more on that in another episode. Some of you will have already started to follow my journey on Instagram at jiu.jitsu.lu. Now, if you haven't already, go and follow, because all of the updates and happenings in my jiu-jitsu journey are there. And also sharing all of your other interactions and stories. I had this amazing comment from BJJ Betty. She was a single old lady and she wanted to take part in a self-defense course. Now, this woman has been part of my inspiration over the last couple of weeks. She started when she was 54, and now 12 years later, she is a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt and is ranked somewhere pretty high in the world for Jiu Jitsu. Betty, I will be having you on my show, so listen out for that episode, everyone. It will be a fantastic conversation. I did actually get the opportunity to ask some of you how you started your jiu-jitsu journey. You know, there's things from being dragged along with friends, signing your children up, and then having to take part yourself, and monthly gift membership for some of you, and just friends, siblings, starting training, and then us being invited along. But all of these things seem like we might not have been the one to initiate this. And this is kind of the important bit about jiu-jitsu, that this is a worldwide community. Everybody is supporting each other and encouraging each other. One of my missions is really to get more women on the training mats to really experience the camaraderie, the community, and the well-being that it brings all of us when we're there. This is the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. Today, I'm talking about warming up to the idea of jiu-jitsu and what it really means to me. My jiu-jitsu story started absolutely fresh out of the box at the end of 2022. And I wasn't quite so fit at that point, but thought I would go along. My children had their classes for the first time on that night as well. And the warm-up is pretty intense. 7 minutes of solid cardio, workout, stretching, getting your body ready to train moves on the mat. I'm rather, I have, to put it politely, and you might get a sense of my humor, front-facing obstacles. So I have boobs and a belly, and doing legs overhead was really kind of difficult. This is the kind of backward roll, if you remember kind of childhood days where you have to put your legs over your head and then roll over backwards. Goodness me. But I felt such achievement from November until March. That's how long it took me to achieve legs overhead. And that was just the most fantastic moment. Maybe for some of you, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but to achieve a warm-up move that I haven't been able to do from the very beginning, and then suddenly there was a bit less of me and I could just achieve this move. It was really quite empowering. I shared it with the women's chat group that we have in our community for jiu-jitsu. And I had so much kind of celebration and understanding. And it just filled me with pride and accomplishment. You know, 4 months earlier, I couldn't have achieved those moves. You know, 4 months on, I'm a white belt. I've achieved my 4th stripe, and I'm training between kind of 2 and 4 times a week, and I absolutely love it. But it's that commitment and dedication. You know, my life is now so much calmer, more structured and organized, because of kind of scheduling days and activities around life. But this is something where we can all go and just be ourselves, which is kind of great, really. You know, I speak to my kind of tech clients, and as an aside, you know, I'm always encouraging everyone to just be more them. And do you know what? This space is really the opportunity for me to be me. And hopefully you also feel inspired that actually, of all the places you could be, maybe being more you is kind of what you achieve when you're training jiu-jitsu. But for anyone that doesn't already train, this, just consider, there's so many wonderful opportunities. So I did decide to sign up for my very first competition. I plucked up the courage, submitted my unapproved participant details, and then committed myself fully. Now competition is this weekend, and sadly, I am very sad that I was refunded because there are no female competitors in my category, which is why, I've got to do one of two things, or two of two things. One is to get more females like you, if you're a female listening, or your partners, your friends, your mothers, your children on the mats, training, being part of this community. Or I've got to change myself and, work harder, which I'm doing. But to be more me, this is kind of where I am right now. But I'd love to be competing with more women. So kind of returning back, age of 10, watching wrestling and The World's Strongest Man on television, and now hosting my very own jiu-jitsu podcast in the wrestling and hobby sector of the podcast world. So if you are interested in being a guest on my show, please do drop me a line. All of the details will be in the show notes. You know how to reach out to me on Instagram. Drop me a message. Come and be a part of this. Come and be a part of my journey. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it. I look forward to have you listening in again for the next episode. And in the meantime, it would really help me if you could rate, review, share, or download this episode. Thanks again for listening. Os. Okay, someone needs to teach me all of the sayings and things for jiu-jitsu. I'm only at the beginning of my journey, okay? Anyway, take it easy. Bye.